This is Camden, London. Vibrant, diverse, a bit chaotic and mad at times, but beneath the surface a legal battle is raging. One man, Raymond Hanson, is taking on the might of Camden Council. He says they failed him. They say they did their best. Who's right? The answer might just tell us something about how we care for the most vulnerable in our society. This isn't just about legal technicalities. It's about human dignity. It's about whether a council, with all its resources, can be truly held accountable for the well-being of its people. The courtroom becomes a microcosm, a place where power and vulnerability collide. Let's go inside and see what's really at stake. Raymond Hanson isn't a lawyer or a politician. He's an ordinary Londoner who found himself in extraordinary circumstances. We don't know all the details of his life, but we do know he lives with disabilities. Disabilities that, he argues, made him reliant on Camden Council for support. He claims their help wasn't just inadequate, it was non-existent. Years of his life, he says, have been blighted by this neglect. His story, whether entirely true or not, forces us to ask, how thin is the line between a council doing its job and a council failing its citizens? Mr. Hanson's case isn't just about one missed appointment or a single instance of poor service. He alleges a pattern of neglect, a systemic failure to provide him with the essential services he's entitled to. This isn't just about inconvenience, it's about access to basic needs. He claims Camden Council discriminated against him due to his disabilities, failing to make reasonable adjustments for his needs. His lawyers argue that the council breached their statutory obligations, the legally mandated duties they owe to residents like Mr. Hanson. It's a David versus Goliath battle, where the system itself is on trial. Camden Council, like all local authorities, operates within a complex web of budget constraints, increasing demand and political pressures. The council is constantly juggling these factors, trying to maintain a balance between providing essential services and managing limited resources. This balancing act is akin to walking a tightrope, where any misstep can lead to significant consequences for the community they serve. They argue that while they strive to provide the best possible service, sometimes things go wrong. Mistakes are inevitable in such a high-pressure environment, and the council acknowledges that there have been instances where their service has fallen short. However, they emphasize that these are exceptions rather than the rule, and they are committed to continuous improvement. They deny any accusations of discrimination or systemic failure. The council maintains that they operate with fairness and integrity, ensuring that all residents receive equal treatment. They argue that any perceived biases are not reflective of their policies or practices, but rather isolated incidents that are being addressed. Their defense hinges on two key points. Firstly, they assert that they have provided Mr. Hanson with substantial support over the years. This includes various documented interactions and services rendered, which they believe demonstrate their commitment to his well-being. First, they claim to have provided Mr. Hanson with substantial support over the years, pointing to documented interactions and services rendered. They highlight specific instances where they have gone above and beyond to assist him, providing not just basic services but also additional support tailored to his unique needs. Second, they suggest that Mr. Hanson's needs and expectations may not have been adequately communicated or may have been unreasonable within the scope of their resources. They argue that there may have been a disconnect between what Mr. Hanson expected and what the council was realistically able to provide, given their constraints. The courtroom becomes a battleground of he said, she said, with the truth obscured by conflicting narratives. Each side presents their version of events, leaving the judge and jury to sift through the evidence and determine what really happened. The outcome of this case could have significant implications for both Mr. Hanson and the council, potentially setting a precedent for how similar cases are handled in the future. Section 5. Witnesses and documentation building the council's case. The courtroom drama unfolds as Camden Council presents its evidence. Witness testimonies from social workers and council employees paint a picture of a dedicated team working tirelessly under difficult conditions. They speak of phone calls made, home visits conducted, and resources allocated, albeit sometimes with delays and challenges. Documents are submitted into evidence, case notes, emails, care plans. Each piece of paper represents a point of contact, a moment of interaction between Mr. Hanson and the council. The defense argues that these records demonstrate their ongoing efforts to support him, even if those efforts fell short of his expectations. Section 6. A timeline of justice tracing the case's procedural journey. The wheels of justice grind slowly, and the Hanson versus Camden Council case has been no exception. Months, perhaps years, have passed since the initial claim was filed. Lawyers for both sides have engaged in a delicate dance of motions, counter-motions, and discovery requests. There may have been preliminary hearings, mediation attempts, and expert witness testimonies. The judge, a neutral arbiter in this complex dispute, must sift through the evidence, weigh the arguments, and ultimately determine whether Camden Council is liable for the alleged harm suffered by Mr. Hanson. Section 7. Beyond the individual, broader implications for public services. The outcome of Hanson versus Camden Council has implications that extend far beyond the immediate parties involved. This landmark case is not just about one man's fight for justice. It represents a broader struggle within our public services. The decisions made here could ripple through the entire system, affecting countless lives. This case shines a light on the challenges faced by local authorities across the country, struggling to meet the needs of an aging population and rising demand for social care. With the number of elderly individuals increasing, the pressure on social services has never been greater. Local councils are grappling with limited budgets and resources, trying to provide adequate care while also managing other essential services. It raises questions about resource allocation, the legal duties owed to citizens with disabilities, and the accountability of public bodies. How should resources be distributed to ensure fairness and efficiency? What legal obligations do councils have to their most vulnerable residents? These are complex issues with no easy answers, but this case forces us to confront them head-on. A victory for Mr. Hanson could set a precedent, potentially leading to increased scrutiny of council practices and a surge in similar claims. Such a precedent could empower more individuals to challenge the decisions of local authorities, leading to a wave of legal actions that could reshape the landscape of public service provision. The case serves as a stark reminder of the delicate balance between individual rights and the limitations of public resources. It underscores the ongoing tension between ensuring justice for individuals and maintaining the sustainability of public services. As we watch this case unfold, we are reminded of the broader implications for our society and the need for thoughtful, equitable solutions. Section 8. High stakes and uncertain outcomes. What the future holds for both sides. The stakes are high for both sides. For Mr. Hanson, this case represents not just financial compensation, but also a chance to hold Camden Council accountable for their alleged failures. A victory would be a vindication of his struggles, a recognition of the hardship he endured. For Camden Council, a loss could have significant financial and reputational consequences. It could lead to changes in their policies and procedures, potentially diverting resources from other essential services. The judge's decision, when it comes, will have a ripple effect, shaping the future of social care provision in Camden and beyond. Section 9. A question of responsibility. Where does our duty to the vulnerable end? The Hanson versus Camden Council case isn't just a legal battle, it's a moral dilemma. It brings to the forefront the complex interplay between law and morality, forcing us to question the very fabric of our societal values. This case is more than just a dispute over legal responsibilities. It is a reflection of our collective conscience. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our society's commitment to caring for the most vulnerable among us. Are we doing enough to protect those who cannot protect themselves? The case challenges us to look beyond the legal jargon and see the human faces affected by these decisions. Where do we draw the line between individual responsibility and collective obligation? This question is not just about legal definitions, but about moral imperatives. How far should we go to ensure that every individual, regardless of their circumstances, receives the care and protection they deserve? How do we balance the needs of the many with the rights of the few? This balancing act is at the heart of many legal and ethical debates. The Hanson case serves as a poignant example of the tensions that arise when individual rights and collective needs collide, and what happens when the systems designed to protect the vulnerable fail to live up to their promises. The cracks in these systems often reveal deeper societal issues, prompting us to question the effectiveness and fairness of our institutions. These are questions that transcend the courtroom walls, challenging us to examine our own values and priorities as a society. They compel us to reflect on our roles as citizens, policymakers, and human beings in a world that is often indifferent to the plight of the vulnerable. The case of Raymond Hanson is a stark reminder that justice, like care, is an ongoing process, a responsibility we all share. It is a call to action for each of us to contribute to a more just and compassionate society, where the vulnerable are not just protected by laws, but are also embraced by the collective will of the community.